On February 24, 2023, Fairfax County Police in Virginia responded to a call from the Banfield family home. A man identified as Joseph Ryan had broken into the house with a knife and attacked Christine Banfield, who was home alone at the time. Joseph was subdued by Brendan Banfield and Juliana Perez, who arrived at the house shortly afterward. Brendan was Christine's husband and Juliana was the family's nanny, having worked for them for nearly 2 years. Christine was taken to the hospital in critical condition, but she succumbed to her injuries and passed away. What initially seemed like a home invasion followed by a murder later turned out to be part of a larger conspiracy. Hey everyone, how are you doing? Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video, I will talk about a case that happened in the state of Virginia. This case, folks, seems more like a suspense movie script. It has betrayal, it has conspiracy, and of course, it has death. Guys, this video ended up being quite long because I brought all the details of this story for you. So I ask you to stay with me here until the end to better understand this story. So, without further ado, let's go to the video. In 2003, at the age of 18, Christine enrolled at Quinnipiac University in Connecticut to study nursing. In 2004, during her first year of college, she met Brendan Robert Banfield, and shortly afterward, they began dating. Christine graduated in 2007, and a year later, in 2008, Brendan proposed to her. Their engagement lasted about 2 years, and on June 12, 2010, they got married. At the time, Christine was 24 and Brendan was 25. Christine was a very dedicated nurse who loved her work. She typically worked 16-hour night shifts, a tiring routine, but one she enjoyed. On her social media, Christine occasionally shared her workout journey at a nearby gym. In some of her posts, it was clear that Brendan accompanied her to the gym. Additionally, those close to the couple say that Brendan was always supportive and encouraging of his wife, often complimenting her. Christine even posted once on her social media about how happy she was when her husband motivated her at the gym, especially after he noticed the difference the healthy routine had made in her body. Brendan, on the other hand, was much more private and didn't usually post much about his personal life on social media. Brendan was a federal agent working for the IRS, investigating potential tax fraud and evasion. Christine and Brendan built their life together. Since they met in college and started dating there, they achieved everything they had as a team. According to those close to them, they seemed like a very united couple. They went to soccer games, parties, took vacations, and traveled to other countries. We can say they were a typical American couple who met when they were young and had many plans ahead. The couple lived for a while in New York, but later moved to Virginia. In Virginia, they settled in Herndon, a city in Fairfax County with a population of over 24,000 people. They lived in a house worth $1 million, located in one of the city's best neighborhoods. The couple was doing very well financially, both had great salaries, and they enjoyed a very comfortable life. When necessary, both traveled separately for work and would be away from home for a few days because of their professional lives. In one of her social media posts, Christine shared that she had to leave her dog at a pet hotel because she and Brendan would be traveling for work at the same time to different places. In another post, she mentioned that she had already arrived home but was missing her husband since he hadn't returned yet. In October 2017, at the age of 32, Christine posted on her social media that she was 3 months pregnant. On March 30th, 2018, she gave birth to a girl. From then on, Christine began sharing her life as a mother on the internet, posting several photos of her daughter, and her husband. In 2019, the Banfield family decided to join the au pair program through the Culture Care Agency. For those unfamiliar with the au pair program, it is an exchange program where a person travels to another country to care for children and study in exchange for housing, meals, a salary, and travel opportunities. It is the most affordable exchange program available. The cost of the au pair program is much lower compared to other long-term exchange programs, and the person works as a nanny for a family. The nanny takes care of the family's children while living with them and receives other benefits, such as living in the United States legally and earning a salary to support themselves. In theory, both the family hiring the service and the person going as the nanny benefit. The family gets someone to help care for their children at a more affordable rate, while the nanny has the opportunity to study a new language, travel, and experience a different culture. Before the family finalizes any agreement with a potential nanny, an evaluation is made to check for compatibility. During this evaluation, the family conducts an interview with the person interested in becoming the nanny, asking questions to learn as much as possible about who will be living with them. If everything aligns, the nanny travels to the country where the family resides and moves in with them for a period of 1 to 2 years. The Banfields were looking for a trustworthy nanny to care for their daughter, which ultimately led to one of the most widely discussed crimes in the United States in recent days. In April 2019, a Brazilian woman named Amanda arrived in the United States through the au pair program and moved in with the Banfield family. After spending 2 years with the Banfields in April 2021, Amanda posted on her social media to thank them for the opportunity and announced she would stay for another 6 months. As I mentioned earlier, in the au pair program, the nanny can stay with the family for 1 to 2 years, but Amanda was granted an additional 6 months by the government due to the global health crisis, which resulted in restrictions. The relationship between Amanda and the Banfield family was very good. Both Amanda and the Banfields shared numerous photos on their social media, showing them all together enjoying trips, parties, birthdays, and dinners. During her time as an au pair nanny for the Banfield family, Amanda met a man in the United States with whom she started a relationship. Sometime later, Amanda and the man got engaged, and on September 25, 2021, they got married. In posts made on Amanda's social media, it's clear that the Banfields were actively involved in the ceremony and the celebration. In fact, the couple's daughter was the flower girl at Amanda's wedding. The relationship between Amanda and the Banfield family was so close that Christine referred to Amanda as part of the family. When Amanda's time in the au pair program ended at the Banfield home, she moved to another state with her husband. But even after moving, Amanda kept in touch with the Banfield family and visited them whenever she could. Since the experience of having a nanny through the au pair program had been very positive, the Banfields decided to search for another nanny through the program. Christine, who really wanted the new nanny to also be Brazilian, handled most of the process. It didn't take long for the family to find another person through the au pair program. Her name was Juliana Perez Magalhães, now 23 years old. Juliana, like Amanda, is Brazilian and lived in the state of São Paulo, Brazil. Juliana graduated in nursing in 2020, and shortly afterwards she began researching how the au pair program worked and how the interviews with families seeking nannies were conducted. On August 9, 2021, Juliana posted on her social media that she would be arriving in the United States in the coming months. She had an interview at the American consulate in Brazil on September 20th, and shortly afterwards she flew to the United States. Remembering that Amanda got married on September 25th, meaning that as soon as Amanda's au pair program ended, Juliana arrived in the United States and moved in with the family. At the time, Juliana had a boyfriend in Brazil and posted on her social media that he would visit her. She also posted in December 2021 that she had been in the United States for 2 months but hadn't met many people, so she was looking for Brazilian friends to spend Christmas, New Year's, or go on trips with. After completing her first year in the au pair program with the Banfield family, Juliana extended the contract for another year. It's said that Juliana's relationship with the Banfields was good. It wasn't like Amanda's, but it was good. After all, if it hadn't been, the family likely wouldn't have wanted Juliana to stay for another year. Remembering that Juliana, like Christine, was also a nurse so professionally, they had something in common. On Juliana's social media, there were photos of her with the Banfield family, but they were fewer compared to the number of photos Amanda posted. I know this doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's just something I'm pointing out to complement the case. After all, many people with social media are more discreet and tend to post less. It varies from person to person. According to people close to the Banfield family, everything seemed to be going well with the new nanny, but it only seemed that way. On February 24, 2023, around 7:50 a.m., a call was made to 911 from Juliana's phone, but this call lasted only a few seconds and ended abruptly. About 13 minutes after this first call, a second call was made from Juliana's phone, and she told the police that a friend of hers was injured. At that same moment, according to sources, Brendan, Christine's husband, grabbed the phone and said he had found his wife with knife wounds in the bedroom and had shot a man named Ryan. The police acted quickly and arrived at the Banfield home in under 10 minutes. There, officers found a man already dead on the floor and Christine Banfield severely injured in an upstairs bedroom. Christine was rushed to the hospital while still alive. The couple's 4-year-old daughter was also in the house, and fortunately nothing bad happened to her. However, Christine Banfield did not survive her injuries and passed away at the hospital. Brendan also needed to go to the hospital due to a leg injury. Preliminary information released by the police indicated that the man found dead at the house was Joseph Ryan, 38 years old. He allegedly broke into the Banfield home and attacked Christine with a knife, only to be shot multiple times afterward. That was all that was known at that point. After being discharged from the hospital, Brendan refused to speak with the Fairfax County detectives or the media about what had happened at his home. Juliana, on the other hand, did the opposite. She spoke with the detectives and signed her statement to the police, sharing her version. Juliana told the detectives that on the morning of the incident, she arrived to work at the Banfield house and witnessed the moment Joseph Ryan broke in. She then, in panic, called Brendan, who wasn't home at that moment, and asked for help. Brendan allegedly told Juliana to calm down, as he would be home in a few minutes. Juliana reportedly waited outside the Banfield house for Brendan, claiming it was for her own safety. When Brendan arrived, he and Juliana entered the house, and it was then that they found Christine severely injured.
He started stabbing her. I think Brendan shot him, and he asked me help. He shot him too because...
It's okay. You don't have to get it all out right now.
I never saw it before. It's a lot of blood.
Okay.
In the midst of this, they encountered Joseph Ryan still inside the house and engaged in a physical struggle with him. Brendan managed to grab a weapon that was in the house and shot Joseph multiple times in the chest, with the man dying shortly afterward. Later, Brendan confirmed Juliana's version to the police, stating that he had fired on Joseph in self-defense. One strange detail is that in her statement, Juliana claimed that she arrived early at the Banfield house to work, but as we know in the au pair program, the nannies live with the family. Thus, it wasn't clear where Juliana was before arriving at the Banfield house. The crime shocked the town of Herndon, and when new revelations surfaced, the case made headlines across the United States. For months, the police did not release any details about the investigation, choosing to keep everything confidential. In the meantime, neighbors of the Banfield family said that Juliana continued to visit the house. It's unclear if she was living there, but according to neighbors, she was often seen with the Banfield's daughter, leading to speculation that she was still working as the nanny. In August 2023, Juliana posted on her social media, stating that she was looking for a new babysitting job in the area. It's against the rules of the au pair program to seek other work while enrolled, so it's likely that Juliana had left the program around that time. After more than 7 months of investigation, the police made progress in the case by collecting evidence and forensic findings. Juliana reportedly told her mother, who lives in Brazil, that the police had concluded their investigation and that Joseph Ryan had killed Christine Banfield due to a misunderstanding, as they were lovers. On October 19, 2023, Juliana was arrested, and she was reportedly very surprised by this development. The reason for her arrest was that the police concluded that Juliana was the one who shot Joseph Ryan, not Brendan, as they had both previously claimed in their statements. The police also determined that at the time Juliana fired the shots, Brendan had not yet arrived at the Banfield house. After her arrest, Juliana Perez was charged with second-degree murder and taken to the Fairfax County Detention Center. At this point, public opinion largely sided with Juliana. Some people even called her a heroine, stating they would have done the same to defend the family that had given her an opportunity in the United States. Many expressed understanding for Brendan's actions in trying to protect Juliana by claiming he was the one who shot Joseph, as Juliana was a foreigner with a temporary permit to stay in the country, and this could have jeopardized her future. Initially, authorities confirmed to the media that Christine and Joseph Ryan had some sort of relationship, as there were no signs of forced entry into the house, implying that Joseph had been allowed inside by Christine. This was strange because in her call to Brendan and her police statement, Juliana said that Joseph had invaded the house. Another unclear detail was whether Juliana knew Joseph Ryan or had seen him before, with detectives investigating that possibility. At the time of Juliana's arrest, the chief of police stated that just because someone had been arrested, it didn't mean the case was closed. He emphasized that they would continue investigating thoroughly to put together all the pieces of the puzzle. It was also discovered that months before her arrest, Juliana had mentioned on social media that she was in a relationship with an American. Later, it was discovered that the American Juliana had been referring to was Brendan Banfield, which of course made the case even more intriguing. When this information was released to the media, public opinion regarding Juliana changed. People who had supported her and seen her as a heroine began to question the entire story. Various theories emerged online, with the most prominent one suggesting that Brendan and Juliana had been having an affair for a long time and had planned the crime together. According to this theory, if Brendan divorced Christine, the couple's assets would have to be divided between them. To prevent this, he and Juliana allegedly staged the attack on Christine, with Joseph Ryan being used as a scapegoat. Another theory proposed that, on the day of the crime, Brendan and Juliana were away together, and upon returning to the family home, they were confronted by Christine and Joseph Ryan. In this version, Joseph was a private detective hired by Christine to find out whether Brendan and Juliana were having an affair, something she had been suspicious of for months. As a result, a physical altercation ensued, and the two decided to eliminate Christine and Joseph in the process. There was also a theory suggesting that indeed Christine and Joseph were lovers, and when Brendan arrived home, he caught them in bed and ended up killing both of them. Juliana allegedly covered for Brendan, and afterward they began a relationship. These were some of the most circulated theories on the internet when the first details of the case began to surface. Shortly after Juliana's arrest, her mother gave an interview to a Brazilian newspaper. According to the mother of the accused, she was very worried because she had not yet been able to contact Juliana's lawyer in the United States. The woman said that her daughter planned to return to Brazil soon, as her permission visa to stay in the country was expiring. Juliana intended to renew her visa in Brazil and after that return to the United States. The accused's mother said she was very saddened by all the defamatory rumors that emerged on the internet about her daughter, and added that Juliana would never be capable of harming anyone. The article in the Brazilian newspaper concluded with Juliana's mother saying that she was hoping the case would be resolved as soon as possible. In her first hearing, Juliana told the judge that on that morning, Christine had given her tickets to the zoo to take the couple's 4-year-old daughter. Brendan wasn't home at that moment. According to Juliana, Christine did this to be alone at home to receive Joseph Ryan, whom she met through a dating website, according to Juliana. This was not a conventional dating site where people meet and all, but a site for those wanting to get straight to business. Juliana said that while she was on her way to the zoo with the Banfield's daughter, she realized she had forgotten the girl's lunch. She then decided to return to the family's house to grab it. When she was approaching the house, she saw an unknown car parked in front of the garage, and then saw a man getting out of the car and entering the house. This man was Joseph Ryan. Juliana said she became scared, not knowing the man, and thought he was a criminal breaking into the house. She then called Brendan to inform him about the situation. Brendan reportedly told Juliana to wait outside as he would be there in a few minutes. When Brendan arrived, they both entered the house together, and Juliana made a 911 call but hung up after a few seconds because she didn't know what to say on the phone. Juliana took the Banfield's daughter to the basement while Brendan drew his weapon and stayed on alert. A few seconds later, they heard noises coming from the bedroom upstairs. They went up to the room and found Joseph Ryan with a knife in hand on top of Christine. Christine was naked and Joseph was dressed. Brendan pointed the gun at Joseph and told him to drop the knife, while Joseph told Brendan to drop the gun or he would attack Christine. At that moment, Joseph allegedly started stabbing Christine and Brendan shot at him. However, most of the shots missed Joseph, and he was not immediately neutralized and continued stabbing Christine. Brendan then shouted for Juliana to go to the bathroom where there was a safe and get his other weapon from inside it. When Juliana returned with the weapon, she didn't give it to Brendan. Instead, she shot Joseph, hitting him in the heart, a fatal shot. After that, they called 911 to report the incident. Juliana's defense stands by this version and claims she acted in self-defense. In the same hearing, the prosecution was also heard and presented an entirely different story. The prosecution stated that Brendan and Juliana had been having an affair for months, and that on the day of the crime, Brendan didn't go to work that morning because everything had already been planned. Brendan left the house pretending to go to work, but actually went to a nearby location where he waited for Juliana's call. The prosecution claims that Joseph Ryan was lured to the Banfields' home believing he was going to meet Christine. According to the prosecution, Brendan or Juliana created a fake profile of Christine on the dating website using her laptop from inside the family's house. On the dating site, Brendan or Juliana initiated communication with Joseph Ryan pretending to be Christine. In fact, the prosecution said these conversations were shown to Christine's family and friends, who stated that the conversation seemed very strange and that Christine didn't write like that. After some time of conversation, a meeting was arranged with Joseph Ryan, who received the day, time, and address of the Banfield family's home. On the arranged day when Joseph arrived at the house, he was allegedly greeted by Juliana, which is why there were no signs of forced entry, and shortly after he was ambushed by Brendan. For the prosecution, Brendan and Juliana planned everything for days and staged the entire crime scene. Their goal was to eliminate anyone in their way, in this case Christine. And with Christine out of the way, Brendan wouldn't have to divide the assets he had acquired with his wife in a divorce and could enjoy all the money alongside Juliana. An employee from a shooting ranch testified during the hearing and stated that Brendan and Juliana had been at the ranch 2 months before the events leading up to the crime. This same witness claimed that a month before the crime, Brendan went to the ranch alone and bought a Glock pistol at 7:17 p.m., paying $558.50. According to the police, this was the same gun that was in the safe and was used by Juliana to deliver the fatal shot to Joseph Ryan. Additionally, Brendan and Juliana swapped their mobile phones just 4 days before the crime. For the prosecutors, all of this was evidence that the two had been planning everything. During the hearing, the prosecutors presented photos of the house on the day of the crime and later showed new photos taken months after Juliana's arrest. In these photos, it was evident that the room that had previously belonged to Juliana in the house was empty, and all her belongings, such as clothes, makeup, and other items, were in the room Brendan had once shared with Christine, but was now sharing with Juliana. Moreover, all the pictures in the house that previously featured Brendan with Christine and their daughter were removed and replaced with photos of Brendan with Juliana and some with the daughter. The defense acknowledged a possible relationship between Brendan and Juliana, but reiterated that during the time she worked as a nanny for the family, she had other relationships, and what she had with Brendan was not serious. The defense also added that both Christine and Brendan had extramarital affairs and were unfaithful to each other. Brendan also spoke during the hearing, but he and his attorney stated they would invoke the Fifth Amendment. As a result, Brendan did not answer anything that could incriminate him and ended up responding to very few questions. At the end of the hearing, the prosecution requested that Juliana remain in custody due to the high risk of flight. The prosecution mentioned that Juliana had attempted to obtain another passport when authorities had withheld her passport during the ongoing investigation before her arrest. In response, Juliana's defense argued that they themselves had instructed her to apply for another passport because she needed an ID to stay in the country, and when she asked the authorities to return her passport, they did not. Therefore, according to the defense, Juliana's attempt to obtain another passport had nothing to do with an escape plan. In the end, the presiding judge accepted the prosecution's request and decided that Juliana Perez should remain in custody without the possibility of bail until her trial date. Brendan Robert Banfield continued to be investigated by the police and remained free. As I mentioned earlier, he initially refused to speak with detectives or the media, and one of the first things he did was hire an attorney. Initially, when he decided to speak with the police, he claimed that he was the one who shot Joseph Ryan. However, after evidence showed that it was Juliana who fired the shot, Brendan changed his story. According to sources, Brendan's daughter with Christine was placed in the care of family members while the investigation continued. At this point, the only information made public about Joseph Ryan was that he was 38 years old and had a profile on the dating site where he communicated with Christine's profile. On September 16, 2024, after months of further investigation, the police arrested Brendan Banfield. He was charged with first-degree murder for the deaths of both Christine and Joseph Ryan. Prosecutors accused Brendan of conspiring to kill both of them in the residence where he lived with his wife. He was also charged with the use of a firearm in the commission of a crime. The police did not release specific details about the evidence they had gathered to prove that Brendan conspired to kill his wife and Joseph Ryan. The only thing they stated was that Brendan and Juliana had a planned trip to Brazil. A few days later, Brendan Banfield's first hearing took place. During this hearing, authorities revealed that Brendan began a relationship with Juliana in August 2022. Juliana had arrived at the Banfield family home to work as a nanny in September 2021, and at that time she was dating a guy who had stayed in Brazil. It was also revealed that 1 month before the crime, Brendan and Juliana traveled together to New York, where they stayed in a hotel and attended a show. During the hearing, Brendan said that on the morning of the crime, he left the house around 7:11 a.m. and made a stop at a McDonald's about 8 minutes from his home by car. According to him, he would often stop there for breakfast when heading to work. Brendan said that around 7:37 a.m., he received a call from Juliana telling him that an unknown man had broken into the family home. He then, without finishing his breakfast, rushed back to his house. The prosecution played the recording of the first 911 call Juliana made. In the recording, Joseph Ryan can be heard groaning in pain in the background. The call lasted 8 seconds before Juliana hung up. The Fairfax County Police Department dispatcher called Juliana back following protocol, but no one answered. When questioned about this, Brendan said the call was not answered because he and Juliana couldn't find the phone, which had fallen somewhere in the house. Brendan also said that at that same moment, he told Juliana to grab his other gun from the bathroom safe because Joseph Ryan was still alive and could pose a threat. But when she returned with the gun, instead of handing it to Brendan, Juliana shot Joseph, hitting him in the heart. There were 13 minutes between the first and second calls Juliana made to 911. To the authorities, 13 minutes was an unusually long time for Brendan and Juliana to call the police again. Joseph Ryan was already injured before the first call, so it made no sense for them to take 13 minutes to call back. The authorities believed that Brendan and Juliana used that time to stage the crime scene. The prosecutor in the case stated that Joseph Ryan's body had been moved to make it appear as though he was actually attacking Christine. Authorities confirmed that the knife used in the crime indeed belonged to Joseph Ryan and that he had brought it in a backpack, as in his conversations with Christine, she had asked him to bring the knife due to a fetish involving pain and pleasure. To explain further, the website where the supposed Christine communicated with Joseph Ryan was a platform for casual encounters focusing on fetishes involving pain and pleasure. That's why Joseph Ryan brought a knife to his meeting with Christine at the Banfield house, which, according to authorities, was quite convenient for someone staging a crime scene afterward. According to paramedics who responded to the scene, both Christine and Joseph had been moved and repositioned. Joseph's arms were covered in blood, apparently Christine's blood, and they were crossed in a way that he could not have done himself after being fatally shot in the chest. The paramedics also stated that, while working to try to save Christine, Brendan never once asked about her condition or if she was going to be okay. Instead, he asked about Joseph Ryan, questioning the paramedics if the man was still alive. Authorities believe Brendan's concern for Joseph was because, if Joseph remained alive, he would certainly tell the truth about what really happened. Additionally, evidence from blood spatter analysis in the room indicates that both Christine and Joseph had been moved before the paramedics arrived. The prosecutor stated in Brendan's hearing that, in August, the police received 2 definitive reports from forensic investigators specializing in blood spatter analysis. These reports were crucial in supporting the theory that the bodies of Joseph Ryan and Christine were moved and repositioned after they had been fatally injured. Days before the crime, Joseph Ryan allegedly told a friend about Christine, claiming that her marriage was not monogamous and that both she and Brendan were seeing other people with each other's consent. This statement from Joseph was based on his conversations with Christine online. In one of these conversations, Joseph Ryan reportedly sent Christine photos of the items he was bringing to their meeting, which included the knife, cuffs, and belts. Joseph allegedly mentioned that he would use the knife to cut Christine's pajamas. The police later found a woman's pajama cut in the room where the crime took place, though it wasn't immediately clear if Joseph had been the one to cut it. Joseph Ryan was known to share almost everything with his friends regarding the encounters he arranged through the website. During interviews with some of these friends, police discovered that Joseph had never spoken to Christine over the phone or in a video call. He had never heard her voice before the day of the crime. Why is this important? As mentioned earlier, authorities believe that the profile supposedly belonging to Christine on the site was actually created by someone else, likely Brendan or Juliana. If Joseph had spoken to Christine by phone, following the theory that she was not the one behind the profile, it would likely have been Juliana pretending to be Christine. However, Juliana has a strong Brazilian accent, which Joseph would likely have noticed and possibly mentioned to his friends. Given this, authorities believe that, aside from the text messages, Joseph never communicated with Christine in any other way. Friends of Joseph who were interviewed by the police also mentioned that he was never violent, and they did not believe he would have harmed Christine. From the day Juliana was arrested, on October 19, 2023, until her arrest on September 16, 2024, Brendan Banfield maintained constant contact with her. In one of their recorded conversations, Juliana allegedly said, "I hope you're not with me just because you're afraid I'll turn against you." Brendan reportedly told her to shut up. Brendan's trial was scheduled for February 2025, while Juliana's was set for November 12th of the same year. However, in late October 2024, to avoid a public trial, Juliana decided to strike a plea deal with the prosecution. As part of the deal, Juliana pleaded guilty to manslaughter and agreed to testify against Brendan during his trial in February 2025. The prosecutor indicated that Juliana's sentencing would only take place after Brendan's trial concluded, as her testimony would impact both the judge's decision and her own sentence. Authorities managed to piece together a timeline of events based on evidence and Juliana's confession. According to them, in August 2022, Brendan Banfield began an extramarital affair with Juliana Perez. In the fall of 2023, Brendan reportedly told Juliana that he wanted to get rid of his wife, Christine, and soon after he started planning the crime. Brendan then created a fake profile for Christine on an adult dating site primarily used for fetishes and fantasies involving pleasure and pain. Through this profile, Brendan communicated with various men, eventually starting a conversation with Joseph Ryan. After some time, Brendan arranged a meeting with Joseph at the Banfield family home on February 24, 2023. Joseph Ryan believed he was communicating with Christine Banfield and that he would meet her in person. In their conversations, where Brendan posed as Christine, he told Joseph that she wanted him to bring a knife and other items to the meeting, as she was interested in exploring some fantasies. A few days before the meeting, Brendan asked Juliana to speak with Joseph via a voice call on Telegram, pretending to be Christine, to make everything seem more convincing. It is unclear whether Joseph noticed Juliana's Brazilian accent during the call. If he did, he didn't mention it to any of his friends. It's possible that Brendan fabricated a story to explain the accent, perhaps claiming that Christine had ties to Brazil or had lived there for a significant time. As Brendan and Juliana had planned everything in advance, they likely devised a way to cover up this detail. During her confession, Juliana told authorities that she did not want to be involved in the crime. She reportedly told Brendan that she didn't think he would go that far, but when she realized he was serious, she attempted to back out. However, Brendan allegedly told her it was too late to turn back. On the morning of February 24, 2023, Brendan gave Juliana a firearm. He had purchased the weapon on January 28, 2023. The plan was that as soon as Juliana saw Joseph Ryan entering the Banfield family home, she would first call Christine and then call Brendan, telling them that a strange man had entered the house and that she was very scared. Juliana followed the plan, making both calls as soon as she saw Joseph Ryan enter the house. The call to Christine's phone went to voicemail because before leaving the house that morning, Brendan had turned off his wife's phone and hidden it in a kitchen drawer. As planned, Brendan waited for Juliana's call at a nearby McDonald's, allowing him to return home quickly. When Juliana called, Brendan also attempted to call Christine, but as he expected, the call went straight to voicemail. Brendan returned home, picked up Juliana and their daughter, and they entered through the basement. They left the child in the basement and went up to Brendan's bedroom, where he lived with Christine. Brendan was carrying his service weapon, and Juliana had the gun he had purchased in January and given to her that morning. When they entered the room, Joseph was holding Christine, and Brendan shouted that he was the police before shooting Joseph Ryan in the head. The impact of the shot caused Joseph to fall away from Christine. After the shot, Juliana called 911. The call was brief, but Joseph's groaning could be heard in the background. Juliana ended the call, following Brendan's instructions, and shortly after, Brendan grabbed the knife Joseph had brought for the meeting and began stabbing Christine multiple times. The 911 operator tried to call back, but Juliana did not answer. Then Juliana went to the house's safe, opened it, and made it seem like she had retrieved the gun from the safe when in fact she already had it with her from the beginning. Upon returning to the room, Juliana noticed that Joseph was still moving. She then shot him in the heart, delivering a fatal blow, as confirmed by the medical examiner. After Brendan staged the crime scene, placing the bodies of Christine and Joseph near each other to make it appear as though Joseph had attacked Christine, he instructed Juliana to call 911 again. In this second call, Juliana claimed that an intruder had broken into the Banfield house and attacked Christine. When the police and paramedics arrived, Brendan went to the hospital with Christine, while Juliana went to the police department with the couple's daughter. The rest of the story is now well known. An important detail is that when Brendan and Juliana went upstairs, Joseph was holding Christine, who was naked. This occurred because, as revealed by the conversations between Brendan, pretending to be Christine, and Joseph, they had discussed a fantasy in which Christine would be dominated by someone entering her home with a knife and cutting her pajamas. As was discovered, Christine's pajama was found cut near the bed. So when Joseph entered the house, he believed he was participating in a fantasy, and Christine, unaware of the true intentions, likely tried to ask him to stop. However, Joseph thought this was part of the act, as they had discussed in their messages. With Juliana Perez's confession, there is no longer any doubt that the crime was a conspiracy orchestrated by her and Brendan to take Christine's life and allow them to be together. Brendan Banfield's trial is scheduled for February 2025, and Juliana's sentencing will be announced shortly after his trial concludes. The judge presiding over the case, Penny Azcarate, who also oversaw the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, is the same judge handling Brendan's case, creating great anticipation with millions of people awaiting the outcome. Joseph Ryan's mother has not given any interviews so far to avoid interfering with the investigation. But when Brendan was arrested, she posted on social media saying that it was very difficult to live without her only son, and that the only thing that still made her get out of bed every day was the hope that justice would be served. Both Christine's and Brendan's families are deeply shocked by everything that has happened. According to the latest information, the couple's daughter, now 6 years old, is under the guardianship of close relatives. I couldn't find any information about Joseph Ryan's funeral. As for Christine Ann Benson Banfield, she was buried at the Queen of All Saints Cemetery in Suffolk County, New York. Well, folks, that's it. Thank you very much for watching me until the end, and I'll see you in the next video.